Thank you for joining me on this video presentation of a government ruling that is coming up on March 1, 2026 that will hit the real estate and escrow industries hard. I'd like to briefly summarize this so that you, the general public and viewer, are made aware and can make informed decisions when you are looking to make your next real estate purchase. The ruling came from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, and it is their anti-money laundering ruling for residential real estate transfers. It may change how we look at offers from potential buyers and how we make transfers of ownership. This is a government ruling, and we always need to have some background to try to explain their actions. So the AML, the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2020, came out of the Bank Secrecy Act, the BSA, back in 1970. It was set up by the Department of Treasury to impose reporting and other requirements on financial institutions to help detect and prevent money laundering. So, anti-money laundering, AML. The ruling was put into effect by FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and it became the watchdog of AML. They are a part of the Department of Treasury. Through various other means like the Geographic Targeting Order, GTO, of 2017 and the Corporate Transparency Act, CTA, of 2021, this agency tried to address the problem of money laundering through corporate entities. FinCEN believes that the U.S. residential real estate market is being used to facilitate money laundering and illicit activity. They believe that money laundering networks using corporate entities are working with cartels and handling funds that are used to fuel the flood of fentanyl across American communities. They also state that presently there's no centralized location that nationwide law enforcement can access to determine who owns the legal entities or trusts that are doing the purchases or transfers of real estate. They want a way to make quick investigations and prosecutions. So they are trying to establish a database that would make investigations less costly and more effective. And this is where they make us get involved. Since 2022, the escrow and settlement industry nationwide have been fighting FinCEN, asking them to stop their overreach. Unfortunately, we were unable to stop the government from going forward with this ruling, and this became the Anti-Money Laundering Rule of August 2024 for residential real estate transfers, the AML for RRET. We call transactions that fall under their designated parameters a reportable transaction. The effective date for reportable transactions is March 1, 2026, but that's not when we start. We must start reviewing files and gathering information months before to catch transactions in which the closing will be on or after March 1, 2026. Now, this is a national ruling. Every single real estate transfer transaction in every single state, county, city across the nation must be scrutinized to see if it applies. FinCEN has advised us that they foresee 800,000 to 850,000 filings a year. Who does the reporting? There is a reporting cascade list of 7 types of reporting entities. You start with number 1 on the list, and if there's no number 1 involved, then you go down to number 2, and so on down the reporting cascade list. Me and every single escrow officer or settlement agent is number 1 on that list. Yay for us, the one time we do not want to be number 1, and yet here we are. It is followed by the person who prepares the closing statement, the person who files the deed with the recording office, the person who underwrites the title insurance policy, the person who disperses the greatest amount of funds in the transaction, the person who provides the evaluation of status of the file, and the person who prepares the ownership transfer deed. Let me point out that sometimes who prepares the ownership transfer deed is not the escrow officer. It could be a document preparation company. It could be an attorney. So those individuals and entities are now wrapped into this ruling. It could even be a consumer who took the form off the internet. It will not matter if your settlement agent is part of a licensed independent escrow company, a part of a licensed broker-owned escrow, part of a title company, or an attorney handling a settlement in attorney states. We are all subject to performing and conforming to this rule nationwide. Now, what types of transactions are considered reportable? Here is the list or the parameters. This is what the real estate agent or the settlement agent should be looking at when an offer is presented. Transfers of residential real estate, single-family homes, and 1 to 4 residential units. The defining word is residential. This includes some mixed-use properties with commercial on the bottom, perhaps, and 1 to 4 unit single-family residences on the top. It includes cooperatives, and it includes vacant land on which the buyer intends to build single-family homes on. At this time, residential 5 units and up are excluded, as are commercial properties. There is no minimum purchase price thrown into the mix. It can be even for no money involved. Next on the parameters, is it all cash? Or is there financing from a private lender or a lender who is not a financial institution? Or a hard money lender who is not already subject to the AML reporting under the Bank Secrecy Act? Are these lenders part of the nationwide mortgage licensing system, the NMLS, and have an NMLS number? If they are not, and they don't, then this is going to be a reportable transaction. By the way, loan brokers who procure the loan and have an NMLS number don't count if they are not actually funding the loan. Any transactions which has a final lender which is already subject to the Bank Secrecy Act, like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, UWM, they are exempt because they are already required to file suspicious AML activity. A seller carryback, well, the seller's a private lender. He is not subject to the BSA, so yes, this would be a reportable transaction. The third defining requirement on this list is the buyer a corporate entity or purchasing it under a trust, even a revocable trust. Then yes, this will be a reportable transaction. Transactions with individual buyers are exempt. Now, once we determine that we have a reportable transaction, the next step in the process is the submission of the client's information. And this is the hard part. The buyer and the sellers are going to be required to submit their private information to the government. There could be up to 111 data points for them to complete, depending on how complicated the buyer, seller entity, or the transaction is. As the escrow officer or the settlement agent, we are cautioned not to help them fill in the form because that becomes a practice of law. Corporate entities, those are the LLCs, the corporations, the partnerships. They will need to provide corporate tax ID number, place of business, and the names of all the members who own 25% or more in this entity. Are there minor children who are named with 25% or more? Their guardian or parent information will be needed. These individuals will need to provide their private background information, names, residence addresses, date of birth, their social security or tax ID number. Their citizenship will also be requested. No tax ID because they are a foreigner? They will need to provide a foreign government ID like their foreign passport. Remember, the main directive of this ruling is to find people, foreign or otherwise, who use entities to launder money into the U.S. I have had foreign clients who were nervous about providing any private information because they were afraid it would get back to their own government. so they would obscure their ownership in a U.S. property by purchasing it as a member of an LLC. Well, under this ruling, this foreigner, if they own 25% or more of the LLC, will have to give their information to our government. Regarding trusts or revocable or irrevocable, the reporting form will ask for the names of all the trustees, the successor trustees, and the beneficial owners of the trust, including parents or guardians of the minors named. FinCEN wants to dig deep into the trust and look at all the beneficiaries, no matter that this is all private information that the government and we should not have access to. So be prepared to ask your buyer trust clients to provide their private trust background information, just like it is needed for the corporate entities. Oh, and if one of the trustees or one of the beneficial owners happens to be a corporate entity, well, then go back to the previous slide and all information on that corporate entity and its members will need to be provided. Let's not forget the role that the sellers have to play in a reportable transaction. We will need their individual names, address, date of birth, contact information, social security number, or tax ID number. And if the seller is a corporate entity, we will need the legal name, type of entity, business address, and entity tax ID number. If the seller is a trust, they need to provide the full name of the trust, date of the trust, and the trust ID number. Also, we will need the trustee's name, their address, and their individual tax ID number. By the way, remember I said an ownership transfer deed, even with no purchase price, has to be reported? For example, if an owner or a transferor wants to transfer his interest to a transferee, which is an LLC or a trust, or if an LLC wants to transfer the property to another LLC or to a trust, all for no purchase price, will that transfer of ownership fall under this ruling? Yes, it will. Who's going to report it? Remember the 7 types of reporting entities? Number 7 is the person who prepares this transfer deed, and they have to report it. This ruling applies to all transfers of ownership, with just a few exceptions. Now, this is not a full list, but these are more commonplace, like transfer to an individual, or an individual transferring to their own trust in which they are the settlers of the trust. Transfer due to the death of an owner, a divorce, bankruptcy, easement deeds, transfer for a 1031 exchange, or transactions for which there is no reporting person. The whole purpose of this ruling is to trace the money. So we need to gather information on the money that goes into the transaction, because money makes the world go round. We will need the buyers to provide information on every single payment of purchase funds that they make, that other people make for them, and also from the private lenders who are funding the loan. We're going to need the payer's name, which might not even be the buyer, right? The bank name, their account numbers, the types of funds transmitted. Is it a wire? Is it check? Is it cash? Please don't let it be cash. Is this in US dollars? Or, heaven forbid, is this in foreign currency? The amount of the funds for every single deposit. And was this paid in escrow or outside of escrow? FinCEN acknowledged our concerns that some of this information is considered private, which the bank does not release. Well, they still want the information, so it will become the buyer's responsibility to find all this information and provide it to us. There are consequences. We will not be able to close escrow until we have all the information from our clients. There is a time limit. All information has to be uploaded 30 days after closing, and FinCEN will reject the submission if not all of their data points on their reporting form have been addressed. In California, the Standard California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement form states that the parties can find themselves breaching the contract if they fail to provide the necessary information required by the ruling. And finally, what is it about this ruling that has our industry in such a tight grip? Penalties. Of course, there are penalties for those of us who are considered the reporting entity. There is teeth to this ruling, big, sharp teeth. $1,394 for each violation of negligent reporting. $108,489 if they find a pattern of negligent activity. And if we are willfully violating this rule, 4 years of imprisonment and $250,000 criminal fine. So you see why we are so concerned and why you should also be concerned. Those of you who are in the real estate industry, you have a fiduciary responsibility to let your client know in advance whether this offer that you or they are considering will fall under the AML ruling, and thus be prepared. I can't emphasize this enough because real estate agents are on the front line of this ruling. It will all start with you. Are you a consumer ready to make a purchase? Talk to your real estate agent. Are you a real estate agent wondering which offer you should advise your client to take? Talk to your settlement agent or escrow officer. Are you thinking of transferring the ownership of your property? Find out more about this ruling. The FinCEN AML site is available for interested parties. The link is right here. Or you can call me or you can email me. My information is here on the last slide. Be prepared. Thank you.